Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young and the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh. I'm your host, Doug Faulkner, Agriculture Director at GX94 Radio in Yorkton. Another busy week, I guess, as things start to slow down as we head toward the holidays. But first of all, Ryan, you had a chance to catch up on cattle prices, and they're still pretty strong.
They're still going up as the latest cattle market update from CanFax showed that prices for most feeder steer and feeder heifer categories were up again by varying degrees. I believe it was only the 900 plus pound feeder steers that wasn't reporting any information at all, and all the others either had both the current price and a week to week increase or difference, or just the current price. But overall, they're looking pretty good as the fall cattle run is pretty much kind of coming to an end here, and that lower supply is met with increased demand, so that's propping up prices as well as the latest developments over with the Mexican restrictions of imports of feeder cattle from down there into the U.S. So uh, Canfax and the Ministry of Agriculture are keeping a close eye on what that means for Canadian feeder cattle moving forward. And again, they're expecting that demand for Canadian cattle to grow in the United States.
Your thoughts on cattle prices, Kevin?
I'll try to next week look into what open heifer and bred heifer and young cow bred cow prices are doing. We're into the time of year where we're seeing a number of those kind of sales. Bull sales aren't too far away as well, but as Ryan mentioned, the fall calf run is pretty much complete. There's always a few that are coming to market, but the bulk of the feeders have come to market. But bred heifers, open heifers, young bred cows, that's a lot of interest to some producers who, in this good time economically for the cow-calf industry, may be looking to expand.
The Saskatchewan Agriculture Agronomy Research Update was held in Saskatoon this week, and Kevin, you had a chance to take in some of the sessions there?
Yeah, I went to the 2 days, and it's actually really heartening to see at least a couple hundred young agronomists. It's mainly for agronomists that are providing advice to producers rather than producers, but at least a couple hundred in attendance in Saskatoon. And I don't know how many more watching online because that option was available too. And it's it's useful to see that some of the wild and weird theories that you hear about agronomy and this miracle product and that miracle product, it's good to be back in the mainstream where things are tried and true with replicated trials and knowledgeable people are talking about what can be done from an agronomic point of view rather than some of the wild and woolly stories you hear out in the country.
All right, and of course, interest rates. We saw a decline. The Bank of Canada cut interest rates by half a percentage point. Ryan, you spoke with Anna Picallo on that, as well as the latest prices this week, too.
That's right, yeah, and it was kind of widely expected that the Bank of Canada was going to do an interest rate cut, but the question is by how much. Some were expecting a more conservative cut of a quarter of a percentage point or 0.25%, but they ended up going with a 0.5% or half a percentage point cut, as some of the numbers that the Bank of Canada has seen, from job numbers to the consumer price index, kind of look favorable for a rate cut. So that was kind of one of the reasons why. And Picallo was in the camp of, expecting a cut as well. And doesn't really surprise him at all that they did make that 0.5% reduction. So some of the conversations that he's having with some clients include, how that applies to them when it comes to, farm debt or any sort of off-farm investments like GICs, for example. Those interest rates could be a little bit lower as a result. So it really kind of depends on what you're dealing with from a financial aspect, and kind of going from there, and kind of segueing into some of the prices for canola and wheat. Kind of getting into that point of year where for canola and the January contract, that's probably going to start trading sideways, Picallo thinks. So that contract is going to come off the board pretty soon here in favor of the March contract. It was up this week by about $10 a ton, and he noted quite a rally since late November for the canola contract. So that's kind of interesting. It was kind of trading around that right around $620 a ton range, somewhere right around in there. And then for wheat, it was kind of up 8 cents a bushel, and I'm referring to the March Minneapolis wheat contract on that. He said that there wasn't really any kind of one factor or any sort of news that was influencing prices, although there was a lot of news related to the wheat market, but again, nothing really to kind of sway the prices one way or the other. So it's kind of a quiet week overall.
Kevin, was the interest rate cut having much of an impact on canola prices? Didn't seem to be this week.
All that monetary policy is all interrelated. So the drop in interest rates, that's, I think, going to translate into a bit more strength for farmland prices. It doesn't mean that they'll go up or up more or less, but it's easier to borrow money for a land mortgage when the interest rates are down. However, the drop in the Bank of Canada rate here, and we're dropping rates faster than the US is, probably makes for a weak Canadian dollar. And even though it's now easier from a loan point of view to be buying new machinery coming out of the States is going to actually be more expensive with a dropping Canadian dollar. And all of the indications are that sales of new combines and new tractors are declining and running well below year-ago levels in both Canada and the US because commodity prices have dropped off.
Something else that happened this week was the Grain Growers of Canada elected a new chair. It's Tara Sawyer, and she's from Alberta. And Ryan, I think you had a chance to speak with her, and of course, she's the first female chair of that organization.
Yeah, that's right. A little bit of history made with her election to that position, and she was quite humble about it. She said it's not really about gender. It's more about the qualifications and skills that you bring to the table. And she does bring some experience as far as governance and farm group policy is concerned, as she is the chair of Alberta Grains as well. So she brings that experience to the table, and she's looking forward to being the chair of the national organization. Nothing really changes in terms of priorities for the organization, but she does want to ensure that when the federal government, makes decisions related to agriculture, that at least the farming community has a voice at the table, so to speak. So she's looking forward to continuing the work over at the Grain Growers of Canada.
And Kevin, I mean, I think we've gotten in the last 20 years or so, we've seen that women in these positions doesn't even make people bat an eye anymore. They're just as knowledgeable and good at their jobs as men are.
Yep, and may come with a different skill set and more attention to detail in some cases. I had a chance to see Tara Sawyer in action at the Alberta Grains annual meeting a year ago at the Crossroads Conference in Edmonton. And I believe the vice chair comes from Saskatchewan. I believe that Scott Hepworth, who is a director with Sask Wheat. So it's sort of separate and aside from some of the organizations producers deal with directly, a pretty wide membership group of Grain Growers of Canada, but do some really good work.
The Saskatchewan Pulse Growers also announced some significant funding for weed research, and that was something I think you were on top of, Kevin.
Yeah, that occurred at the Agronomy Research Update in Saskatoon, where SaskPulse used the opportunity with a crowd like that to announce a multi-million-dollar 6-year commitment to various weed research projects. And a lot of that will be led by weed scientist Dr. Steve Shirtliff of the University of Saskatchewan. And a lot of it is going to be managing kochia, particularly within lentils. And that's a great problem. If you ever drive through southwest or west central Saskatchewan some years, the kochia problem in lentils is very easy to see, and it's a problem that people are really looking for long-term solutions for.
And Ryan, we heard that the Canary Seed AGM was held yesterday, and Chuck Penner was a guest speaker there.
Yeah, that's right. And he listed some of the, excuse me, the concerns that some pulse growers are kind of facing heading into 2025. The top one, obviously, being what the United States is going to do with incoming President Donald Trump and his commitment, I guess, shall we say, of imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian imports unless he gets his way with addressing issues at the border when it comes to illegal drugs and illegal immigrants going through the border there. So unless that's addressed, then there wouldn't be any tariffs. But that's the number one concern, especially for trade between Canada and the U.S. with agri-food products and agriculture products. Another one, also a lot of the concerns as well as to do with international trade as well. That was the number two concern, which was trade with China with regards to their so-called investigation into Canadian canola imports and the anti-dumping and allegations of that. So we'll see where that goes. And of course, with India as well, with the tariffs that they have on some pulse imports coming from Canada. So one of the biggest things that he did say in the presentation was a lot of these are out of farmers' control. So you can't really develop some sort of a risk management plan as a result. So, you just kind of have to hope that there is, kind of a favorable outcome for Canadian farmers, and there really isn't a whole lot of barriers that come in between us and getting our products to market.
Kevin, would you agree with Chuck Penner?
Yeah, Chuck Penner is one of my favorite analysts of all time. Although every analyst, I think we should tie one of their arms behind their back before they give a presentation so they can't say on the other hand, because there's always so many factors involved in any time you're looking at where the markets may go. As far as pulse crops, one other interesting aspect will be whether India extends its tariff exemption on peas beyond December 31st, and that's something that the market is watching. Another factor in the marketplace this week was the U.S. Production, supply, and carry-in numbers, where their corn carry-in number or the carry-over number on corn is much smaller than many of the analysts predicted, and that gave a little bit of a boost to the entire grain complex. But like Ryan said earlier, we're probably into the doldrum seasons before Christmas, and any big market moves may not be on the table unless something surprising happens.
And then on Friday, the Saskatchewan Water Security Agency released this year's Conditions at Freeze Up report. And of course, they're suggesting that even though conditions are somewhat drier than normal, this year is still an improvement from last year when moderate to extreme drought conditions were being observed across the province as late as last October. They're saying that there's been a lot of snow this fall and into the early part of this winter here for many regions, including the East Central region is what they say has had the most so far. So that's us here in the Yorkton area. But they're also suggesting, though, that there are no areas in the province that there is a heightened risk of above normal spring runoff in 2024. What's your take on that, Kevin?
Well, I'm at the farm and have been pushing snow out of the yard for the past 2 days, so we've got pretty good snow cover, and it's not the loose, fluffy type. It's had some rain on top of it and a little bit of melting on top of it, crusted on top. So there's some moisture in that. I would have to say our runoff potential here in the dry southwest is reasonable for this time in the year. The snow came fairly late in the season, but it came. Last year, I think I used the snowplow for like 5 minutes. I've been out for a number of hours moving snow in the yard this year, and it's still early. There's still time for lots more snow to come. So, and many of the dry areas did have some fall rain. So, no, we're not out of the woods. There's always that looming drought potential, especially in the dry areas of the province. But great to see snow cover as we head into Christmas time.
Ryan, I believe Regina still has quite a bit of snow as well, right?
That we do. We got a decent amount of snow over the last few weeks here. It's pretty good. I know, like Kevin said, in terms of kind of the moisture content with the snow and the rain, it's kind of hardened and crusted as well. And I know that because I was shoveling a bit of snow out of my driveway this morning before I left for work. So it's good to hear, especially considering the long-term with the seeding season next spring. It's good to alleviate some of those drought conditions, and I guess we'll see where it goes from there.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young and Kevin Hursh, the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time.